How's everybody doing today? Welcome back to another episode of Boys in the Zone. Got a fun guest here. Kelly it's his first official time on the show. I've had Mike on a couple times now, but and we were supposed to get the duo on, but it didn't work out for another episode, man. How you doing tonight? And just shout out your socials for everybody.
Yeah, man, I'm doing good. I'm happy to be on here. I know we had you on the show, man, and things fell through last Tuesday, but you know what? This is going to be a sweet one because we got a little bit of victory Tuesday to talk about some things. So,
There you
um,
go.
my Twitter and my TikTok both the same. It's just at Kelly K-9. So you can find me on both of those, Twitter, and I do some things on TikTok, not as much as I do on Twitter, but
Mhm.
and then our YouTube channel is the Cowboys Cave, so it's just www.cowboyscave.com, and that's our channel that we got me and my co-host Mike Tag, Mr. Godfather of Hype himself, and we do that every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube. So
Absolutely, man. And that if you guys don't follow Cowboys Cave, man, they do a lot of former player interviews and just chat it up. They I mean, they have a bunch of content. They have a fantasy show, all sorts of stuff that they do. It's a really great show, and I'm in the chat a lot of times and just hitting it up with the people there too. And it's a good time, man. But we got to talk about this Philly game, man. 33-13. I mean, we took them out to behind the shed, whooped them. I mean, 20-point victory, and really we spotted them. The special teams, whenever they went for the fake punt, that's 3 points that they got right there, and then the fumble, uh, TD recovery right there for Dak. That's what 7-10 points. So really,
yeah,
they scored 3 points on us. Um,
right.
man, just talk about your highlight and for that game, and talk about your MVP for that game, Cowboys, man.
So I kind of just knew that I kind of felt confident about that game, but you always whenever it's a division rival, anything can happen. I've watched the Cowboys long enough to know that you can't always expect what you expect. Sometimes they shock you, but I mean, right away, man, it was just evident that the Cowboys were going to be able to do whatever they wanted to on offense. That first drive, they got that thing going and went right down the field and scored right away. And that was when I knew that things were going to go good. Then the Eagles started their drive, and I was like, well, it looks like this is going to be one of them shootout games where it's going to
Hmm.
be trading punches. But then we get the fumble and get the ball back, and then after that it was just kind of like you just kind of had a feeling like, well, we're not gonna lose this game. Cowboys go down, kick a field goal. Brandon Aubrey, for me, um, man, he's there was some really good play on all sides of the ball, but for me, I got to throw Brandon Aubrey in there and give him some love. I feel like the kickers don't
For
get
the
enough love.
MVP, there you go.
Yeah, and just I mean, because the way that he, first of all, it was a huge field goal that he nailed for Mike McCarthy to have the confidence in him to just put him back there, rookie kicker,
Hmm.
prime time television, kick a 60-yard field goal, and the man just made it look like it was easy,
Yeah,
like if he was hitting a chip shot in
I
practice.
mean
So
that hit the back net that catches the ball, and that's 8 yards away from
yeah,
the uprights. So that could have been
yeah,
good from like 70 yards away. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Yeah, no, it was it was as soon as it went off his foot, you knew it was good. Like I mean, as soon as he connected with it, I'm watching, I'm like, this is good. That's good. Like
Hmm.
it's good. And then and then he hits one from 59. And so I mean, it's not easy to hit from 60, but basically to do it twice in a game is, and as a rookie, I mean, and this is a big game, and those points were important at those times. We were trying to, create a little bit of distance at halftime, knowing that Philly was going to get the ball back at the half. So I mean, it was a big moment, and once again, he just kind of comes through and does what he does, and just puts it right through the uprights. Man, I respect it.
Yeah, I mean, I had this point a little bit later on in the show, but I mean, 30 for 30 for this guy over the season, 8 for 8 from 50 plus, and he set the NFL record for that. I mean, Is or should he be in that rookie of the year conversation? I mean, obviously you see what CJ Stroud's doing. You probably are going to
Yeah,
hand him the award, but Aubrey should be in the conversation a little bit. Like 30 for 30 and 8 for 8 from 50 plus with a 60-yard long field goal is, I mean, that's borderline like Justin Tucker, like top of the league, like very, very best kicker in the league type of numbers. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, I mean, I think he'll get a nod at All Pro. I think he'll be an All Pro kicker his first year, which is going to be great. Um, the way the NFL is set up, that it's kind of like the MVP. I don't know why they call it the MVP. It should just be the league's best quarterback, because that's
Yeah.
what it's pretty much become. No player outside of quarterbacks win it. It's the same for Rookie of the Year on most. If it's a quarterback that's playing really well, that's a rookie, he's going to get it regardless. You know what I mean? Unless
hmm
there's like a historic season by a wide receiver. But this is a historic season by a kicker, and when you look at it and look at how many points he's scored on the season for the Cowboys, he's been responsible for a lot of points. So
Yeah.
I mean, I do agree. I think he should be in the conversation. The Cowboys fan in me obviously would love to see him get it, but I think looking at this, the CJ Stroud with the Texans, I
hmm
don't think a lot of people thought he was going to be near as good. I know I didn't think he'd be this good.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's had a hell of a season and had some pretty big games. And so I think more than likely, I think that gets handed to CJ Stroud. But absolutely, Aubrey should be in the conversation when it comes to, them putting in the votes. He should be one of the guys getting some, at least getting the consideration for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. And I mean, Dak and Micah are actually leading for Defensive Player of the Year and MVP odds right now. So you threw Aubrey in there, man. That would be like a trifecta. So
Yeah.
that'd be really cool. But just going back into the game, Dak goes for 271 yards, two touchdown performance. Obviously, he has that strip sack that goes for the touchdown, but he made some really really nice throws. Early on, he was passing a little bit high, missing some throws, but man, he really got dialed in, and you see it. Just the confidence in his footwork at the end of the drops, just the rhythm whenever he gets back there, and then he just doesn't have that hesitation that he had the season prior, and he just lets it rip. And it's paying dividends for this passing game, opening up the running game now. Usually you hear that the running game opens up the pass. Now it's completely opposite for the Cowboys. I mean, they really, really know how to use all quadrants of the field. And we finally saw our run game kind of get going early on in the game because Philly was so concerned with our passing attack. They were sinking back their linebackers and they were playing coverage more often. And that left the light box and it allowed us to run.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought that I was surprised that we were able to run the ball against Philly's front, because that's been one of their strengths. But when you when you're throwing the ball like Prescott, it's kind of hard for them to load up on the box, which has been one of those things where I've kind of looked at the run game of the Cowboys and wondered why they haven't been able to be a little bit more successful in running the ball, because I feel like a lot of
hmm
teams are kind of having to do that with Dak. They really can't load the box, and honestly, it makes what Dak is doing that much more impressive, because when you used to have Zeke and you had the threat and the presence of Zeke and running the ball and the play action pass and all that, it seemed like that was a little bit more difficult for Dak. But now with the schemes that McCarthy has drawn up and just the way that he is calling the game plan, it's made things easier for Dak. And it doesn't really matter if the defense is playing, that if they're dropping back a little bit, it doesn't really matter. Dak seems to find the soft spots in every coverage.
hmm
He's making the throws, when his guys are open and they beat single coverage. If it's man coverage, his man beats him. Well, Dak's right there to throw it to him, and he has. I mean, some of the passes that he's thrown just over the course of this season have been like one or two quarterbacks in the league that could make the
Yeah.
kind of throws that he's making, because these are throws into tight windows. There was a touchdown pass that CeeDee Lamb dropped against the Seahawks on that Thursday night game, that I think CD was actually surprised that Dak actually threw that ball and that it hit
Uh huh.
CD right in his hands, went right through his hands, because I mean that was a perfect throw between two defenders. Same kind of throw that he made to Jake Ferguson over the that defender when he made that big play over the middle. And he absolutely threw it where only Ferguson was going to catch that ball.
Yeah.
And just seeing him have the confidence in his arm and his ability and what he's seeing on the field to make those throws, it's just a different level of Dak Prescott. I've always thought that he's been an accurate passer. I've always thought he's been a good quarterback. But sometimes he'll make some questionable decisions.
Mm.
And there's usually a few times during the games in past years where there's a time or two where you're kind of left scratching your head and you're like, damn, why did he make that throw? I haven't seen one of those throws in probably since the Niners game, honestly.
The
So
Giants game, I think he got baited by it looked like a man coverage. The nickel corner sinks into the zone and just intercepts him. But yes,
yeah,
I mean, really, the Niners game, he was just kind of forcing stuff. For me, Dak is just. I think that he and McCarthy are just working in so much unison, lockstep, and just realizing like, hey, you missed this throw a little bit, and there was some throws that were really left on the field against the
yeah,
Eagles. I mean, that deep ball late in I think the third quarter over the top to Brandon Cooks, where I can't remember who was in coverage, but they hit him a little bit and he drifts out of bounds before he can catch the ball in the end zone. He put that on the back pylon. That's a touchdown. Um, just thinking about that high ball to Gallup. And there's a few more, but just off the top of my head, yes, he's been so good, but they're not shying away when he does miss one. That's the biggest thing. With Kellen, they're like, okay, let's take this deep shot. It's third down. Let's take this deep shot. Next time they'd come out, they'd play conservative. Okay, everybody's running to the sticks. Not Mike McCarthy. He's still riding with his guy. He's still saying, hey, let's attack them vertically because we've done it all year and we've done it to excellence. You missed one beforehand, and then you go right back to it, and Gallup hits the deep one, gets the toe drag swag on the left side of the field. I mean, that stuff is just beautiful to see because we're actually utilizing all of the not only just levels of the field, but route combinations working in unison finally. And it's just amazing to see. I got to shout out my guys in chat. Vinny's up there. He says, "What's up?" Kai101 says, "What's up?" EJ and K-9. Hexam in the chat 311. Have to check out your show is what he's saying. Falcon 000. He's always in my chat, man. I appreciate him so much for rocking with me. Mark McDonald, you obviously know him.
oh yeah,
Mark's a
oh,
great
Mark.
guy. So yeah, just chat's rocking, and they're in here and they're just agreeing with what we have to say basically about Dak throwing these balls and getting. I mean, I think he's running away with the MVP conversation right now, but Purdy, we'll get into that a little bit on in the show. But I do want to talk about Jake Ferguson in particular because we saw it in the Seahawks game. The dude brought intensity, aggressiveness, and he looks like he's finally growing into his own. And people aren't holding him back. People aren't saying, yo, hold back a little bit. We can't get these flags. No, they're letting him be himself. And that's where you get your great characters. You look at the 49ers, none of them are tugging on Deebo Samuel and saying, like, hey, man, don't be talking in the pressers. Like, we have to back this. No, they're letting him be his character. And that's what's special. That's what's growing in this locker room right now with the Cowboys. They're letting Jake Ferguson be that guy. And then with Jake Ferguson being that guy, it's leading to CD Lamb getting a little bit more swagger and coming up. And I mean, he always, did the slime and the first downs and stuff, but he's talking a little bit more trash because he knows that whoever you put opposite of him aren't going to be able to stop him unless you bracket cover, unless you take a safety from the middle of the field and tell him, hey, you got CD Lamb, we have to help on this guy. That's the exact stuff that's different about this team. And you pair that with your quarterback playing off the charts, it's scary, man. And then you got a Brandon Cooks, you got a Pollard that's finally starting to get his juice back. Rico that's looked like a nice little second punch, kind of like Pollard and Zeke were a couple years ago. Man, it's exciting.
Yeah, man. I mean, Ferguson is a guy who, I mean, I liked I liked him last year, and he just didn't get to see the field enough with Dalton Schultz still
Mm-hmm.
being there on the field. But I mean, he had that game, that Giants game, where he leapt over a defender and went down the field for about another 15, 20 after that. And that was, seeing something like that, you just realize how good of an athlete he was at the time. And I remember when the draft came, like I was. Uh, heavy against the Cowboys going tight end. They went tight end and they grabbed Schoonmaker, which we'll see. I haven't given up on him just yet, but I didn't think they needed to do that because I
Mm-hmm.
thought they already
Mm-hmm.
had a star in Jake Ferguson. I had put out a tweet, I think in May, Jake Ferguson's will be tight end number one. And, I had the full confidence that he would be that guy. And he's showing up on the field and being that guy. I mean, and he's getting a lot of comparisons to, Kelsey. And, rightfully so. They obviously they wear the same number. So that's the first thing, first and foremost. But they're both big, athletic, physical tight ends. And they bring that toughness and they both kind of have that swagger. And, that's contagious when you see guys making plays like that. It was the same as when Zeke used to get a home run, a 20 yard run, you know what I mean? Or a run to take the house and he's out there and he's doing his celebration or he's running through a Cam Chancellor in the preseason, stuff like that. That kind of stuff
Yeah.
is contagious. And when you see these guys making plays like that, when you see them with that confidence, when you see them with that physicality, Blankenship's coming over the middle here, and Ferguson's like, you know what? I'm not gonna let you. I'm gonna run through you. I'm gonna
Knocked him
run
out of
through
the
you.
game too. Yeah.
And he did, and you see that. So that's the kind of toughness that you want to see from this team. When people talk about the Cowboys, a lot of times they don't talk about the Cowboys being a physical team. The Cowboys have kind of been looked at more on the lines of a finesse team. And I,
Mm-hmm.
I could see why, because when they've played a team that's physical like the Niners, they've kind of had it taken. Yeah, they've had it taken to them, 3 times now. I can't deny that. But I think the physicality is growing. I think this team is changing. I think the culture is changing. I think the attitude is changing. And I honestly think that starts with Mike McCarthy. And I
Yes.
give him full credit for what's happening with this team. And, there's still a lot of people I feel like that don't really trust McCarthy, but I do. I'm not one of those people. I have seen McCarthy start to evolve in just the little things. Time management I thought has been better. I thought play calling, different things that he's done has been better. Like the guy is just a perfectly rounded coach. Not only that, Cowboys have never had 3 seasons in a row where we've won 12 games or more. That's going to happen this year.
Yeah.
Again, we're going to
Yeah.
have this will be our third. And regardless of what happens in the playoffs, I know we all want to be successful. We want to get past that divisional round. That's the mantra. The Cowboys right now is we can't get past the divisional round. But listen, there's not very many teams that are going to have 3 12-win seasons in a row. That's competitive. That's a good winning culture, and that's a team that has a chance at the end of every year. And that's all you want is a chance in the playoffs to be able to try to make a run at the Super Bowl. And like I said, I think it all starts with McCarthy. And I think it's starting to it's catching fire with this team. And you're seeing it on the field now. That physicality was absolutely there against Philly. They took it to them, man. And they were the more physical team in that game.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you said, and you made so many good points that I'm forgetting my little. I want to interrupt, but you're just making so many good points. But one of the things, man, I will kind of echo what you're saying about Mike McCarthy because Jason Garrett, we fell into that we do what we do mentality. Mike
Yeah.
McCarthy is making adjustments, and not only is he, not afraid to make them, but he's not letting outside, um, like he's not afraid to let outside noise and opinions and criticism be a negative. There's positive criticism, and you can take those things and you can use them as learning moments, and he does that. And
Yeah.
like you said, with the 12-win seasons back to back, there's only one team that has a better record over the past 3 seasons than the Cowboys, and that's the Chiefs. And we're probably going to finish with a better record than the Chiefs this year, so we might actually be atop of the rest of the teams in the league. Now it has to start to come with the playoff wins and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
the best way to go deep in the playoffs is to get to the playoffs consistently each and every single year. And that's what Mike McCarthy has done. I think that we've only out of all the years that Tony Romo made the playoffs, it was only 4 in his entire career. Dak's almost on his 5th and his 8th year, and one of those years he broke his entire leg. So I mean,
Yeah.
Dak needs his respect, but also Mike McCarthy needs his flowers given to him as a head coach and as a players coach and just somebody that doesn't want to temper people's character and who they are. He's not doing that. He's letting them be who they are as a player, and because of that, it's helping the chemistry and helping this locker room immensely, in my opinion. We did get a question in the chat. He said, Falcon00 says, here's a tough question. Most improved player on the Cowboys from last season to this season. I can make an argument for Dak, Ferguson, Bell, Osa. Do you have a player that you think has kind of stood out? For me, I think it probably would be Dak just because of,
Uh,
um,
Yeah, I think it has to be just because of last year with the turnovers.
yeah.
And look, we won 12 games last year, and Dak still didn't have a. It wasn't a horrible season, but obviously, missing 5 games, leading the league in interceptions. That was just it was a down year for Dak. And to really see him put in the work in the offseason and to tell everybody, look, I'm those interceptions, that's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen this year. So saying it's one thing, going out on the field and doing it at an MVP level. I mean, I don't really think I could pass that award off to anybody else, man. I mean, I feel like Dak is responsible for this team's success right now because you look at a game, you look at the game against Seattle. Our defense has been our strong suit. Our defense has been, that's kind of what's kept us in games with takeaways and whatnot, different things like that, giving us
Mm-hmm.
good field position. I mean, that game, the defense they weren't able to stop anybody. They got the stops when they needed to there in the fourth quarter, but Dak was able to put together drives to win that ball game
Yep.
and big moments, big plays, third down conversions, like you name it, man. And he's had it. And you've seen him play in a couple of games this year. I've had a couple of games where we got down a little bit early. He kept his cool. Wasn't making any dumb plays to put us in holes. Brought us back. We won those games. So
And
Dak is absolutely the guy
I
for me.
I think to a point also you have to look at what Dak is doing in a, I won't say completely similar situation to Patrick Mahomes, but the Cowboys receivers and tight ends have had problems with drops. The Chiefs wide receivers and tight ends that have problems with
Yeah,
drops. The
yeah,
Cowboys are one of the most penalized teams in the league. The Chiefs, the penalties are killing them right now. The Chiefs have a
yeah,
really good defense, but they're lacking right now on offense. And you're
yeah,
seeing from Dak's standpoint, and Mike McCarthy to that extent is just a play caller, man. They figured something out after the bye week, and it has catapulted this team to having not only a top five defense, but marrying that with a top five offense. I mean, right now, currently as it stands, the Cowboys have the number one offense in the league, points per game.
yeah,
And considering where we were in the first 4 weeks when we were all, or first 5 weeks really, when we were all screaming about the red zone and the inefficiency there and just not attacking the middle of the field, no deep leveled route concepts and stuff like that. It was a 180 from where it
yeah,
started at the beginning of the season. And I put some of that blame on the Cowboys not utilizing preseason and trying to figure things out in preseason as much as they should have with their starters.
right,
But what has derailed this team in the past has been the injuries. Dak Prescott has been injury prone the past couple years, and with the finger injury, with the ankle, with the um, what was the other thing that he had?
Cat
The
strain. Yeah,
calf, yeah, the
cat
calf
strain.
strain. So there was a bunch of things with that with Dak, Tyron Smith, and he even hit. During this season, he was staying out of games and whatnot. But they wanted to protect themselves, so I understand that in the preseason. However, it did have a hindrance at the beginning of the season with the offense, and we had to get over those hiccups a little bit. Um, but man, I can't tell you how impressed I am as a fan just sitting back and just watching how refreshing it has been from the culture change of a Jason Garrett and then all Kellen Moore's offense. And somebody in the chat said, just look at the small little usage of Turpin. He didn't even use
Yeah,
Turpin. And Mike
no,
McCarthy
that's
is
it.
utilizing Turpin not only as a punt returner and realizing that he can score in deep passing plays, kind of like a Brandon Cooks, but he can be used on the sweeps. We saw a massive run that set the tempo on that first drive by utilizing Turpin as a runner. And you
Yeah,
get that guy in space, and he can do great things, but you have to be willing to use your weapons in order to get the best out of them. And so it's so refreshing, and it's so beautiful to see. Finally, we have a really good defense and a really good offense together, and then you pair that with the best kicker in the league right now in Brandon Aubrey and a really damn good special teams coordinator in John Fossil. So
Yeah. No, and and I don't know what it is, what they figured out as far as knock on wood here, but what they figured out as far as the Tyron Smith, and I don't know if it was just limiting him in practice. I know that he's had a
mm,
few practices where he didn't practice at all. I don't know if they've kept up that routine or what, but whatever they did has been working for Tyron Smith because he is on a stretch right now where that dude is just playing some dominant football, which is why I think that the Cowboys, I mean, and when you look at what they're paying him, I mean, they've got him on a bargain right now. Obviously, there's the injury issues, which, would preclude them from paying him a huge, big contract. But this is why you keep him on the roster. I know at the beginning of the year, I was like, I don't even know why we still got this dude. He's going to miss tons of games. I was like, we should have been looking
well,
for his replacement. But I mean, right now, there's not, I mean, he's playing elite left tackle level. I mean, when you look at the amount of I mean, he's not allowing sacks. He's not
I
committing
will
a bunch of
say
penalties. He's playing great.
more so than any other year, though, the front office was very, very good in this offseason, figuring
Yeah,
out to make moves for Gilmore, for Brandon Cooks, but also restructuring Tyron Smith's contract, because not only was it advantageous for the club per se, because it changed his contract and it was play incentive, but also for Tyron. Like, hey, if you stay healthy, you're actually going to be making more this year than what you would have. And so
yeah,
it is really, really helped with the trust, and Mike McCarthy realizing, like, hey, we can keep this guy out of practice because he's been there, he's done that, he's been an all pro for how many years, yada, yada, yada. And we protect him from the injuries, the stupid injuries that I mean, we lost Diggs to something like that, just a
yeah,
practice injury. I mean,
yeah,
imagine how much better this team would be with Gilmore, Diggs, and Bland versus Lewis in the slot. How many third down conversions has Lewis given up? I mean, just
yeah,
think about that. We could be even better right now.
yeah, yeah.
So
Defensive secondary.
it's crazy, but I do want to hit this question by official Manny B in the chat. He says, "How do you think this offense would have been if McCarthy called the plays as soon as he got to Dallas versus Kellen Moore? That was back when we had Zeke, Amari Cooper, CD, Gallup pre-injury. Like,
Yeah.
talk on that a little bit, Kelly."
I mean, when you look at what this offense is doing right now, it'd be hard. You'd be hard pressed not to think that this Cowboys team would, you know, might be already have hosted a Super Bowl,
Have
man. I
already,
mean,
yeah.
that was a hell of an offense that we had. When McCarthy first took over, it's a really good offense, and yeah, I mean it when you see what the offense is now versus what it was then, you definitely get very you definitely get frustrated that it took so long to make the change with Kellen Moore, and I get it. Kellen Moore put up a lot of fluff stats, and the numbers just seem to be good, and everybody was like, "Well, how are you going to get rid of a guy like that?" And then McCarthy comes in, and just McCarthy's offense is so much more efficient, and I think that was always the problem with me anyway. With Kellen Moore was one, he was horrible at adjustments. It never seemed like he'd make adjustments. Just the simple things that the simple because they're not huge tweaks to the game that McCarthy's made. They're really not. I mean, but it's it's just a night and day
Well,
difference though, because you feel confident in Mike McCarthy to call the right play at the right time versus Kellen Moore
calling the play
getting
just
goofy
off the
with it.
sheet. It's almost like he's reading a book and he's
Yeah,
scared to go off script and skip a
right.
line and go to the next play. He's just
Yeah,
reading it at, you know what I mean? And to Falcon's point in the chat, he says the difference between Kellen is he forces guys into his scheme versus McCarthy that schemes to this guy's ability. And
yeah,
uh, to the point, like, yes, we miss Amari Cooper and Zeke, that version of Zeke, and that version of Gallup. We miss those guys, but imagine Dak, this year's Dak, 3 years already in this offense. Because if you date it
yeah,
back to when, you know what I mean? Obviously, he misses that first year with the broken leg or whatever. But Dak in the West Coast scheme for 3 years now, with all the
yeah,
footwork and with all the timing and all that rhythm goes into that. I mean, that might even be I mean, you're talking about Dak already as an MVP. That might be like a perennial All Pro, first team All
yeah.
Pro every single year type of guy with how he's playing. Now, obviously, it's hard to keep that level up for time. That's what separates the good guys from the elite guys and stuff like
Right.
that. But I mean, that just that little small point about Dak being in that same system and not having to work through all of those things with Kellen. Um, yeah, I mean that's a great point. I do
Yeah,
want to hit on Gilly real quick in the game. Apparently, he gets called old early on in the game from AJ Brown. Bad business decision. I'll just say that by Brown. The dude had clamps on him all night. Um, and not only this is what I loved about Gilly. And whenever you've been there and you've done that and you've won Super Bowls and you've won Defensive Player of the Year, you have that sense of pride and ego to know like maybe I'm not as good as I once was, but it's almost like that Toby Keith song. But damn, I'll be as good as I once ever was, for one time if it means that, And
yeah,
I mean, he was that. He turned back the clock. He put the clamps on, and yes, AJ Brown got his yards at the end of the thing, and thankfully he did for my fantasy team. But um, those were mostly garbage yards, really,
yeah,
because Gilly not only locked him up, but after every single play, he let him know who's old now, who's old. I'm clamping you. You're getting clamped by an old man. Like
yeah,
you want to
yeah,
be a all pro. You're the best in the league supposedly, and you're getting clamped by an old man. Like how's that make you feel, dog?
yeah.
I mean,
No, I thought it was great. I thought, I mean, he was one of the him. He was probably the off-season addition that I was most excited about, just because I knew we'd be able to pair him with Diggs, and I felt like he's a number one, still has number one defensive
qualities.
back, capability. And so I thought, the fact that we'd be able to have two number one DBs on the field, combine that with Bland, um, who is a great, slot corner, and is showing the ability to play on the outside as well, which you don't see that very often from a slot corner to be able to move outside and do it as well as he's still been able to do it. I understand he had his struggles in that in that Seattle game, but he turned around. He had a good game against Philly. Um, they weren't able to pick on him. I was wondering if they would try him. They really didn't get much off Bland in that game. And you look at that though, and I will say that I'm already thinking about. I don't want to think too far ahead, but I'm already thinking about next year. And if I'm the Cowboys, I'm bringing him back. I'm that's
That was a
priority number one is I
question.
got to bring him back.
That was a question on one of my earlier episodes. It might have been like
Yeah,
4 or 5 episodes ago, and at that point, I was kind of questioning his physicality, Gilmore's
yeah,
physicality, because it seemed like he made a business decision and wasn't always tackling in the open field, and that's okay when you're up by big, but in some close games, he had me worried sometimes because he just wouldn't hit, and that was
yeah,
a critique of Trayvon Diggs last year.
yeah,
Excuse me. But I was wondering like, okay, is he worried about an injury? Is he just kind of not a tackling guy? Because remembering back to those days whenever he played for the Patriots and the Bills, he was always a pretty sound tackler, and so I was kind of
yeah,
surprised whenever I was seeing that early on in the season. But these last 3 games, he's been much better in that department. He had the huge fourth down. I think it was actually back to back plays, third down and fourth down back to back in this last game against the Eagles, where he came up and he made a hell of a tackle or a play on the ball. Um,
yeah,
and I don't have those questions anymore. And now I'm on the flip side of the argument where it's like I probably would bring him back, not only because he's been so good for you, but he's another leader in the locker room, but also an ACL injury. Yes, it happened very early in the season for Trayvon Diggs, so hopefully he does come back and he's good. But out of all the positions in the league that you need to be able to run, wide receiver and cornerback are the very two most important.
right,
And so an ACL injury is not, um, and especially for somebody like Diggs, it really makes a living off of like getting into his read, figuring out I can drive on this ball, read and react and drive on it. Whenever you have that ACL injury, sometimes you don't have that same capability that you had in the past until you build that strength back up. And so, and he's still a young guy, and he's come back from like a broken foot at Alabama or something like that back in the day, and he's always come back from injuries and came stronger. So I don't have a worry about that. But if you can get Gilmore on a good team friendly deal, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I figure that if depending on how the season shakes out, I do know that he had talked about wanting to play alongside Diggs, and that it didn't get to happen this year. So I mean, the Cowboys can always draft it, but they've done a really good job drafting DBs lately. So they can go out still and they can draft a guy next year, and they can still have some of these younger guys developing behind a guy like Gilmore and Diggs. And I mean that's a hell of a group to bring back if you're able to do that,
Mm,
to come back with another year under, hopefully Dan Quinn sticks around. We'll see how that goes, man. But to have that with those three
a trio.
cornerbacks,
And
man,
plus, and then you add in the
huge.
safeties. Hooker has
Yeah,
been Hooker. I mean, I don't
he's played
know
really
how
well.
many people watch actual film and all 22 stuff like that, but Hooker on that back end is that free range safety over the top on the cover threes, and especially in the man coverages that Dan Quinn likes to run. He has been very, very good all season, and
Yeah,
he does not get the flowers he deserves. So that was an elite signing in the offseason by this front office that goes under the radar. Um,
yeah.
I want to talk about this. Micah Parsons, 3 straight years to start a career with 12 sacks, at least 12 sacks. Joining Reggie White is the only other player in NFL history to do that. This marks, I believe, the fourth Cowboy that makes NFL history this year for something. And we've got Deron Bland with the pick sixes. We've got Brandon Aubrey with the most consecutive field goals to start a career. We have CeeDee Lamb with 150 yards in 3 straight games with 10 plus catches. And now Michael Parsons joins that group to make NFL history with the first 3 years, not solely alone at the top. But I bet you at the end of this year, he's going to end up with more sacks than Reggie White did in that same time. Just speak to how good Michael Parsons has been, and um, how much better he can really get as a pass rusher the more that he develops moves and understanding on how to beat offensive tackles. And I think my favorite part about Michael Parsons really is the ability to move all across the defensive line. So just talk about that, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that he's the ultimate weapon, because you can move him all across. You can rush him from any position. Um, if you wanted to, you could even drop him back. And, you can drop him back because the guy still can play that linebacker position and drop back into coverage. I mean, there's nobody that can do what Michael Parsons does. There's just nobody in the league that has his skill set, and the fact that you know he's just he's a natural pass rusher, and to watch the battles that he had there, with Lane Johnson, who Philadelphia Eagles fans have said,
Crowned as
that
their
he's
Lord and Savior. Yeah.
yeah, he's Lane Johnson is Micah's father. I've heard all these things about him. Well, I'll tell you what, man, the father got his ass whooped by his son on
Yes.
Sunday night, because Michael Parsons was, I mean, just bullying that dude around. I mean, the sack that he had on Jalen Hurts, when he just literally pushed Lane Johnson back into Hurts, and he has Lane Johnson with one hand driving him back, and grabs Hurts with the other one to bring him down for the sack. I mean,
He's
that's
getting
just,
bear hugged by Lane right there.
yeah, and that's what I was saying. I mean, I'm watching it and I'm like, I mean, that's basically could have been flagged as a hold the way Lane had him, because at the end he was holding
I'm
him, and
yeah,
I'm just going, and I'm sitting there thinking, and I watched, I don't know how many other plays I watched where Michael Parsons seemed like he was getting held more than a newborn baby, and I'm just sitting here
yeah.
going like, this dude is just an animal. He's a nightmare for offensive linemen, man. So I mean, I'm just glad he's on our team, and I know that when it's time to pony up the dough, Jerry's gonna have to back up the Brinks truck for this guy, because
Yeah.
he's going to be the highest. I
Yeah.
think he'll be the highest paid player in NFL when he gets his contract, and rightfully so. Though
And he'll break
he's gonna,
another record. You're right.
yeah,
He'll break
yeah,
another record for the highest
yeah,
paid player
yeah,
ever for the defensive side.
yeah.
Um, yeah, if I would have told you that Micah beat Lane Johnson for a sack, you probably would have envisioned it in your head. Oh, he got the jump on him. He beats him onto the outside and beelines
Right.
it to Jalen Hurts. You're not expecting Micah to just go straight bull rush, take Lane
Mm-hmm.
Johnson and I forgot their freaking right guard. The right guard even tries to come and help on this play. Tyler
Yeah,
Steen,
no,
I think,
yeah,
is who it was, or maybe Cam Jurgens. I don't know. Either way, takes both of them and then still gets the sack. I mean, golly, man, his power and
mm-hmm.
just it's crazy because he's not even really seen as the prototypical pass rusher as far as arm length. He has like
Right.
short arms for for a defensive edge. But man, his just get off and his ability to get inside of you so fast and or get
Yeah,
around you is just it's off the charts. And I'm super excited to see him just hone in and continue to hone and get better because like obviously early Von Miller was very 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 good. Micah can be better than that. Like literally,
yeah,
he has more speed. He has more power than Vaughn. The only difference is Vaughn had been playing as an edge rusher since his time in high school versus Micah that really hadn't. He's been,
yeah.
put as the linebacker, and for the large majority of his high school, he was playing as a running back. Um, so yeah, it's really impressive to see that guy down in, down out, and still fighting to adversity, getting held almost every single play. Gotta shout out my guy Doug, who's also in the chat right now. What's up, Doug? Guys, if you haven't already, please do leave a like. Share the video if you can. It really does help me continuing to try to grow. Been doing some giveaways and whatnot recently as well, and I appreciate all the support that's coming out. I do have some questions right here for you, Kelly. So, more
Okay.
impressive streak right now: 15 straight at home, or 30 straight for Brandon Aubrey?
That's a good question. Man, I'm damn. I want to say the home streak just because, Dallas has always been talked about that we don't have a home field advantage, but that has changed because there's
Mm-hmm.
obviously something cooking at home. I mean, 15 straight, that's the longest active streak in the NFL, I believe, right now. Um,
Yes.
but but Brandon Aubrey, man, for a rookie, I haven't been this impressed by a kicker where you're just like, because Dallas has had some pretty good kickers over time. They had Dan Bailey, who was a solid kicker for many years. There's been some guys that have come through. We're like, all right, but Aubrey, I remember during the offseason, I remember hearing about him and I'm like, oh, great, here we go. I mean, we're here because we were hearing about kicking woes in training camp. Field goal kickers, missing. And I'm sitting there going, all right, well, I don't know who the hell this kid is, but, we'll give him a shot here. But I mean, the fact that he's come in, he hasn't missed a field goal all year. I know he's missed a couple extra points, but I mean, he just looks like he is confident, and it's like he's not even breaking a sweat. I mean, just walks out there and it's like hitting a chip shot, and it's a 60-yard field goal. I mean, that was incredible. It's a big situation, pressure moments. It doesn't matter when it is. When he lines up for a field goal, I just chalk the 3 points up. And I think that to have a guy like that on our team, it's invaluable because this is a game of inches, and sometimes, it's 5 to 10 yards, depending on your kicker, is the difference between you punting the ball or putting 3 points on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you can line up with confidence and have your guy kick it, from between 50 and 60 yards, is pretty clutch for a head coach and for an offensive
Yeah.
coordinator to be like, we know, we
It's
got 3 points on the board if we get here.
I didn't even think about this until now, but I used to pray for times like this. Like literally, you think about since Dan Bailey, we really haven't had a solid kicker in so long.
Right.
And not only do we have a solid kicker, we have one of the best punters in the league, and we have one of the best punt returners and kick returners in the league with Kvontae Turpin. Oh, and then you
Yeah.
add on John Fossil and the ability to dial up different guys to go on block kicks and block punts. Our special
Mhm.
teams unit might be the best in the league, and I haven't even thought about that in a little bit. But man, it's one of those things, man. It just makes you excited to be a fan of this team right now. And also, let me add in another streak because apparently Mark McDonald, he was at all 15 of those wins too. So that's an impressive streak for this guy here.
Oh, all right.
Um,
Yeah, actually, that is pretty impressive. Mark, you better make sure you guys don't miss no more games.
yeah, man, Mark, you better be at every single game from here on out. Um,
That's right.
all right, man. Here's the next question for you, and chat. Also, you guys got to put your answer to these questions in the chat as well. Um, the better Dak meme right now. Is it the Dak dance, the hip thrust, or is it the here we go?
It's got to be the "Here We Go." When I was at the Seattle game, first of all, they got a rap song that came out. There's a local Dallas rapper,
Yep.
and the song came out. I don't know if you heard that. It's on YouTube. Just
Mm-hmm.
type in "Here We Go" on YouTube, and you'll hear it. First of all, I thought that was pretty cool. But just the when I was at the stadium for that Thursday night game, literally you are hearing that everywhere. Walking to the stadium, you're hearing it in
Mm-hmm.
the walking through the concourse, you're hearing it in your seats. For the people that are sitting next to you. I know I was yelling it, the guys around me yelling it. Like it's contagious and it's caught on. And even here in Omaha, Nebraska, I go to a watch party here, about 30, 40 Cowboys fans. They're yelling it. I mean, it's just it's caught fire.
Yeah.
And there's t-shirts out there with it on there. I mean, that's for me, it's got to be the "Here We Go" because now I'm shouting that shit before every game starts.
Yeah.
I'm cracking a beer and I'm "Here we go." Like it's
Oh
just
man, it's
I don't
taken
know. It's
over my
awesome.
my work atmosphere because I work with my dad. That's how I became a Cowboys fan. So my dad owns his own business, so I work with my dad, and me and him are always "Here we go," whatever we're doing. So it's
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yep.
I got to agree with that.
Yeah.
And chat emphatic "Here we go" is in the chat right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, so Dak has beaten every single team in the NFL, but two. Do you know which two teams are those two teams, Kelly?
Man, I'm gonna guess that one of them is the Buffalo Bills
Yes,
because
sir.
I know we haven't beat them. I remember that Thanksgiving. I remember that Thanksgiving beatdown they gave us a couple years ago. That was horrible.
And they were
And
on the
then
sideline and they were doing the Dak dance, mocking us, man. We gotta get the revenge game for that.
yeah, and man, I'm not sure who the other team might be. I'm gonna have to say, is it the Denver Broncos?
It is the Denver
Yeah.
Broncos. So
Okay.
so
Yeah.
Dak has the chance to knock one of those teams off the checklist this upcoming week on Sunday. I think it's a 325 game. So
Yeah.
has the ability to knock off the Buffalo Bills and move to 11-3 for the Cowboys. Denver will have to wait. I don't know if we play them next year or the year after that. I think it's
I think
next
it
year.
might. Yeah. I would have to check because I think it was 2020.
I think it was two
Yeah,
years ago where he had the
2020.
really, really bad game, and then at the very
Yeah.
end, he had those two touchdowns to like our fifth string wide receiver or something like that, or one touchdown or
Yeah.
something. So
I was at that game. Unfortunately,
yeah,
it was terrible.
so hey, Denver, you're on the loading dock here soon,
You're on
but
the
we got to
list.
check off Buffalo Bills, and with that, let's just jump straight into this Buffalo Bills talk, man. Um, I think personally, right now, outside of Dak Prescott, outside of Brock Purdy, you could make an argument for Josh Allen being the best quarterback uh, playing right now. Mahomes hasn't been very good. Hurts has been average all year, in my opinion. I don't know how he was ever in the MVP talks. Um, the other big names, Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, those guys are injured. Herbert's now injured. So um, other than maybe you could make an argument for Russell Wilson, but right now, for my money, I think that Josh Allen has been very good. Over the past 5 games, he's been averaging about 260 yards per game, thrown for 8 touchdowns over that span, 5 more on the ground. The difference is he's been giving the ball away a couple times. So out of 5 games, he's thrown 6 interceptions. That's Dak's season total. Um,
Yeah.
so he's going to give the ball away, but with what he can do with his arm, he has a rocket arm. He can fit a ball into anywhere. The difference is he has too much confidence sometimes and tries to
Yeah.
throw cross body, and that gets him in trouble. With that being said, they are top 6, I believe, in offense and defense. So it's kind of almost the reverse Eagles, where the Eagles were worse than their record. The Bills are, I think, better than their record. The difference is they're not very good away. They're 5-2 at home. Of course, we have to face them at home, so it's going to be a tall task. Uh, Currently, actually, the Cowboys are a negative 2.5 underdog against the Buffalo Bills, which is I kind of feel like a little bit of a slight to the Cowboys, a little bit of disrespect, just because of how we've been playing. 5 straight victories now, 15 straight at home, really rolling over the past 5 games. I think we've averaged like 40 points. So a little bit of a slight. What do you think is the key to victory this Sunday in Buffalo?
Well, I was looking up a couple of things on my phone while you're talking because I wanted to look at a couple of things because I wanted to see one what the weather was going to be like in Buffalo, New York. It's going to be 46 degrees on Sunday.
Yes,
So it's
sir.
not, the weather's not going to play a fact. It doesn't look like it's not going to be snowing. It's not going to be windy. It's not going to be horrible weather. So weather won't be a factor there. So no really home field advantage other than their fans. I also was looking at, Josh Allen's game log, and there have been only 2 games this year that he did not throw an interception. So,
Damn. Yeah,
just
I didn't
going,
see that stat. So
yeah, 2 games this year. That's it. It's Miami and Las Vegas were the only 2 times that he did not throw an interception this season. So, that being said, I think you can chalk up at least one turnover. And the thing about it is with Dallas secondary and with this Dallas defense, period, they're an opportunistic defense. So when you get a quarterback like Josh Allen, who tends to like to take some chances and fit balls into places where he probably shouldn't,
hmm
and for me, that's where Dak Prescott's gotten better. A lot of times he'll look downfield and instead of trying to make that play that he probably shouldn't, he'll check it down and he'll get the open guy to get the yards. You know what I mean? There's times he'll make the check down to the running back, or he'll check it over the middle, or he'll get that 8-yard route versus trying to go for the long. Whereas Josh Allen feels like he can always make that home run play, and I just feel like there's something ingrained in him that
yeah.
just makes it impossible for him not to do that. So I think the key to the game will be if our defense can get a turnover or two, is capitalizing on that, whether it be good field position, whether it be scoring. But I think that our defense, once they start those turnovers start coming, it's like a feeding frenzy. I mean, you I don't know how many games we've played this year. I'd have to look it up, but when you get one turnover, it goes into 2 turnovers.
hmm
In some cases, 3 turnovers. It's like this. It's like one person gets a turnover, and it's contagious. I mean, you saw the fumbles, the forced fumbles against Philly. I mean, we were just, these guys were going after the ball, and they're going to continue to do that. So I think that for me, it's forcing Josh Allen into turnovers, which, like I said, it's become the norm for him to throw a pick during a game, at least one.
Yeah.
I think this Dallas defense is probably going to force him into multiple. I think it'll be a difficult game. I don't think we're going to blow out the Bills, but I do see this as a winnable game. I do see Dak being able to get this, get the win, and get get Buffalo checked off the list, and then Denver will just be the last team standing. But I think it's going to be our defense against their offense will be what will be the difference in this game.
Mm.
And if they play like they did in Philadelphia with that same physicality and with that same aggressiveness, um, I think that Josh Allen's he's gonna struggle a little bit.
Yeah. No, I agree. I got a shout out chat here. My guy Botchi Eric is in the chat. What's up? What's up? And Stephen McKinley, I think he's a first time in the chat. Seems to know Doug and Mark, so maybe he's from your channel. So glad to have you on here, man. Leave a like if you can, and possibly subscribe if you like the content. Um, for for me, I think it's exactly what you said. Josh Allen is prone to giving you not. It doesn't always have to be an interception, but a bad play 2 to 3 times a game. Now, whether or
Yeah,
not you capitalize on that interception is up to you. And I think the Cowboys, Gilmore, I have complete trust. If a ball comes his way and he has the ability to pick it off, he's going to. Bland, I for sure know he's going to pick it off. Hooker's been good on that back half, so if they're trying to attack the back end and for the deep ball and whatnot, I like my chances there. My biggest thing is when they isolate Jordan Lewis or Donovan Wilson in coverage.
yeah,
So if they can get those guys, singled up in man-to-man coverage, which we know that Dan Quinn likes to run, that's going to be the advantageous matchups to attack. Now, Gabe Davis, I mean, he has not been on the same page with Josh Allen these past couple weeks, dating back to that almost should have been a game winner against Philly. And then I think he went 0 catches against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I assume the Bills are going to look at that and be like, hey, we've got to get Gabe involved. We got to get, I mean, he's a playmaker. And of course, they're going to be trying to look at Stephon Diggs as we got to get him involved. My biggest thing is, can he cover? the back out of the flat because Cook's been pretty good at actually out of the backfield getting those just flat passes. The thing is, how much can Josh Allen continue to throw those before he gets bored?
Right.
It's like a 3 point shooter in basketball. If you're one of the best 3 point shooters in basketball, you don't want to continue to go for layup after layup after layup when you know you can get one more point for hitting the three each time. And
Yeah.
so um, how often can he do that consistently and not risk a deep ball?
Yeah.
And if you force him into those deep balls, and you have the right coverage, like you've said, like you've alluded to, you can pick him off. And my thing is, I don't want to bait him necessarily because if there's anybody who has the strongest arm in the league, it probably is Josh Allen. I mean, he has a rifle for an arm, so he can.
Yeah.
If you try to bait him and then make up with that, before the ball gets there, I mean, his ball getting there versus Mac Jones is a lot different. Deron
Yeah.
Bland, you gotta realize that. So
Right.
those are my keys. Is like, don't bait them, play solid coverage, make him irritated and angry that he can't find anybody open and have to use his legs. With that, Damone Clark and Bell, you have to be able to wrap up in the middle of the field and contain him in the pocket because when he gets out, he's not only a good runner of the football, he's big and he's hard to take down. Um,
Yeah.
so with that, those are my keys for the defense. For the offense, I think that realistically, they're not the greatest passing coverage team. They lost Tre'Davious White for the year. I think Hyde has been dealing with some injury issues. Milano's out for the season, I think. Um, so I think that you can attack them in the passing game, which is good because the Cowboys, that's what they've succeeded at all year. The thing is, you just have to be willing to take what they give you, march down the field. Do not settle for field goals with this team, though,
Yeah.
because they are one of those. They've only let up. They've actually let up less touchdowns than the Dallas defense. They have 27 touchdowns let up. The Cowboys have 28. So they're a pretty good defense. The thing is, you can drive on them. It's that they get kind of tighter in that red zone area. So we gotta be aggressive. Use that same mindset that you would going into a Philly, where Mike McCarthy wasn't afraid to go for it on fourth down.
Yeah.
Um, and really, I think if you do that and you force a turnover or two on Josh Allen, you're going to come out victorious and you're going to check that box off for the Buffalo Bills off of Dak's resume for the teams that he's beaten.
Yeah. I agree, and I think the one thing too that bodes well for the Cowboys and has seemingly been something that is for them to get off to a fast start and find a rhythm, because I feel like once they kind of get into that rhythm and they build a lead, if they're able to get an early lead, then it gives the chance for that defense to be a little bit more aggressive. To pin their ears back and come after Allen a little bit more, make him have to get rid of that ball quicker, which then in turn that's where the interceptions start coming. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to being able to see Dak Prescott have a little bit tougher test with that Buffalo defense. But when I watched earlier in the year and I watched that game, the Philly Buffalo game, and I watched that game and I watched Philadelphia be able to get a win. Obviously, I feel like they had some help from the guys in the striped uniforms, but whatever, they still ended up and they were able to pull it out. But when I watched some of the things that Philly was able to do, it kind of gives me confidence in Dallas being able to do some of the same things,
Yeah.
in terms of what they did offensively. I feel like I feel like overall, across the board, I mean, I understand that Philly, they got AJ Brown, Dallas Goddard, and Devontae Smith, but I feel like our weapons are just as good, in terms of what we have with our offensive weapons, in terms of CeeDee Lamb, in terms of Ferguson, Cooks. We
Man,
had Michael Gallup in there to starting to
I
make some plays and stuff. I like what we have and what we can do.
I think another the factor to this game is the Cowboys use much much more motion than the Philadelphia
Yeah,
Eagles do. And the
yeah,
Eagles, the reason why they were able to win that game was really, and if there was ever an MVP case for Jalen Hurts, it was that game. Because not only did he make some big time throws along the sidelines, Which I mean, I won't throw shade at Jalen Hurts, but that's where his bread and butter has been along the sideline, so he doesn't get forced into interceptions because usually it's a batted down ball or your receiver catches it. But beside the point, um, uh, um, the RPO action with Swift was getting really heavily involved in that game. And then
Yeah.
through that, the RPO opens up and Jalen Hurts can run the opposite way, confuse their linebackers. And then through that, it syncs the linebackers up and it makes them play more towards the RPO game, which allows you to get the plays in the middle of the field and along the sidelines and really give one on one matchups with your wide receivers. You get one on one matchups with A.J. Brown, Devontae, Smith, it's going to be advantageous for you. That's why Philly was so good last year, is because the RPO game was so much better. Jalen Hurts isn't right, and I really don't think that their offensive coordinator is as good as the Colts head coach right now. But Shane
Yeah.
Steichen or whatever his name is. Beside the point, though, I think that the biggest thing, you got to stop Josh Allen in the red zone with his legs. And I don't think they have a really good running game, so I really don't think that's going to hurt you bad. I think you just gotta cover these guys and force them into mistakes and force the turnovers. Excuse me, and just play your game, man. Use the
Yeah.
motion. Allow CD, allow Turpin, Cooks, Ferguson, Pollard, all of those guys to get into the situations that they are, like Falcon said earlier, that they succeed at and that's best for their specific abilities, and exploit this defense because I do think that they're good, but I don't think that they're great. I don't think that they have like difference makers on that defense necessarily. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. No, I don't think so either. I think Dallas. I just feel like right now I've got so much confidence in Dallas over this 5 game win streak they got going, that I just feel like that if Dallas continues to show that consistency that they've shown, I, I f- I don't really feel like obviously I still feel a little bit nervous about San Fran, but outside of San Francisco, I don't think there's another team in the NFL that can beat Dallas when they're playing their best ball and they're
Yep.
playing consistent like they have been playing. Um, so I mean, I've told people before. I said I try to keep it as real as possible. I said I still got questions about that San Francisco team. Trust me, if I don't have to go through them in the playoffs, I don't want to. I'm not afraid to admit it. Anybody else outside of them, I just don't see anybody else
Line them
outside
up.
of them being able to beat the Cowboys when they play their game.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. Botg Eric in the chat makes a good point. If we had Trayvon Diggs healthy, this game would have a lot more hype around it. And yes, I'm
Oh,
sad that the Diggs versus Diggs
yeah,
duo um, doesn't get to be played, man. That would have been so much fun to watch. And now we have to wait another 3 years and possibly not even because truth be told, I think Stephon Diggs is not going to be there in 3 years in Buffalo.
yeah,
But
probably not.
we'll see. I do want to jump into Cam Newton, his comments about Dak Prescott and Purdy, the two front runners for MVP, basically calling both of them game managers. Um, Interesting take considering that the Browns had an opening at quarterback and they didn't even call you. Didn't even Cam, you're not even good enough to be on the Browns right now. Apparently, they called Joe Flacco, and you're calling
Yeah,
other. You have the audacity to call other people game managers, and not only
yeah,
other people, but the two front runners for MVP. Interesting, but I wanted to get your opinions on that, man.
yeah. Cam Newton was a guy who was used his legs a lot, and he was a guy that ran the ball a lot. I was never impressed with Cam Newton as a passer, and I would take Dak over Newton as a passer any day of the week. Any day of the week. I would take him
Mm-hmm.
over. I would take him as a. I would take Dak just a quarterback. Period. If I was building a franchise and then I was drafting a quarterback, I would take Dak over Cam Newton. Period. So a game manager is not what Dak Prescott's doing. Dak Prescott is having an amazing year throwing the ball. Now, when it comes to Purdy, I will respect what he's doing. I do. He's got some guys though that really. I mean, I think in that game against Philly, I can't remember how many yards he passed for, but I think like 200 of those yards was yak yards, which is insane, insane. And he
Yeah,
gets that, pretty much almost game in and game out, because you've got guys like Debo who you can get the ball and they're home run hitters. You got like guys like McCaffrey, home run hitters. Ayuk, same thing. Get these guys the ball in space, hard to bring down. So, but I wouldn't really consider either one of them game managers. I think Purdy still has room for improvement, in my opinion, with some of his downfield throws and kind of seeing things right. Because if you take, the thing about Purdy is, if you take Debo off that team, Purdy just he looked like a totally different quarterback.
yeah,
And I think that if you took CD off this team, I think Dak would still be able to have success. I don't think he would just fall apart and start looking like he was, Mr. Irrelevant, whatever. So, and in terms of, the Newton thing, I had to look this up real quick. So, I mean, on his MVP, in his MVP year, he had 3,837 yards and 35 touchdowns with 10 picks. Um, I mean, by the time it's said and done, that's probably not going to be too far off what Dak Prescott has, but maybe even less interceptions. Um, so I don't know how he could look and say that with his MVP. Those were his MVP numbers, and then look at Dak Prescott in the season he's having and say that Dak Prescott's a game manager.
yeah,
Dak has been one of the best quarterbacks in throwing the ball downfield. I think when I looked at it, I think he's top. I think it was top three in throws completions of over 20 yards or more. He's one of the best in the league this year of doing that. That's not indicative of a game manager. He's not checking the ball down. He's not dinking and dunking. He's making all the right throws. He's making all the right reads. Dak Prescott's playing better than anybody in the NFL right now, and that includes Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not saying he's on Patrick Mahomes' level. I'm saying he is playing right now better than Patrick Mahomes. Granted, Patrick Mahomes doesn't really have many receivers, but he does still have some weapons on that team. He's still got Kelsey. He's still got,
well,
but
I
he's
mean,
he's playing great.
here's my thing is I live in Kansas, so everybody around me is Kansas City Chiefs fans. And Patrick Mahomes, or everybody, I mean, sorry, all the Kansas City Chiefs fans told me Dak's trash last year, blah, 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 blah. I said, he doesn't have receivers. Minus Lamb, who does he have? Dalton
Right.
Schultz good. Dalton Schultz is not good. He literally is, all he does is run up in a Y option and find the soft spot in the zone coverage and catches the ball and goes down. If he tries to go for yak, he fumbles the ball. That's what I told people. Noah Brown is your number two is not good. And now the flip side is now the Kansas City Chiefs are in the exact same position. Mahomes has thrown 11 picks, 22 touchdowns. I don't know, 23 maybe. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't really follow it that closely, but it's in the exact same position now. And now they want to say, Patrick Mahomes doesn't have anybody, blah, 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 blah. Everybody has to have somebody. I said, what happened last year, dog? You told me Dak was trash for the exact same thing with a worse offensive coordinator. Andy Reid is a better play designer than Kellen Moore. And sure, you can say Eric Bieniemy is gone, blah 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 blah. Give me the excuses, but at the same time, it's almost the same exact scenario. And so you can't say
Yeah.
one is great just because they had the best receiver in the game for so long, Tyreek Hill, and they had a great defensive coordinator in I forgot what's the DC there in Kansas City. Um, gosh, what is his name? He's very good. He's done a great job with a lesser cast, and now they've got a good
I
cast
can't think of his name right
and
now.
continues to do better. Chat, help me out here. Um, but and then one of the best offensive minds in Andy Reid, and you got a probably the greatest all time, or maybe at least top three all time tight end, and you refixed your offensive line, all of these things to make it the best possible situation for Mahomes. Now you take away his receivers, and he still has Travis Kelsey. I really do think he's declining right now. Um,
Yeah,
but still a very good tight end. I mean, he's still tops in the league. Spagnola, thank you.
that's what I was about to
Stephen
say, but
McKinley.
for some reason I kept thinking, yeah, that's right.
Spagnola, he's a good DC man.
Yeah,
But yeah, they just built that entire situation around Mahomes, and people forget the Chiefs were not a bad team with Alex Smith. They were good. They just couldn't get over the hump.
yeah,
And so I mean, Mahomes has been in a great situation the entire time he's been in the league until this year. And now we're kind of seeing what happens when you don't build the supreme roster around. And then flip side, I'll go back to Brock Purdy. You can see with Brock Purdy that you can win regardless of your, well, not, I won't say regardless, because I do think that Brock Purdy is better than the Jimmy Garoppolos and all the other guys I had in the past. Now,
Yeah.
if I said who's the best player, like if I was like, hey, rank all these guys on the 49ers, best to worst, I mean, especially on offense, he would not be even the fourth, fifth best player that you name. You could say Trent Williams is better, Christian McCaffrey, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. All of those players are better than Brock Purdy. And
Yeah.
so, and with versus Dak Prescott, um, you can say, I mean, I really don't even think CD's better than Dak. You could say Zach Martin is maybe the only player you would say is better than Dak on the offense, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then you talk about uh, who other than CeeDee Lamb would start as skill players on the 49ers. Pollard's not better than Christian McCaffrey. I like Ferguson. He's not better than George Kittle. CeeDee Lamb, obviously, you could say is better than Debo or Brandon Ayuk. I would pick him over both of those guys. But both of those
Yeah.
guys are very special inside of that offense. Um, and then, am I missing anybody? Greg Jennings is actually a pretty good number three. And then what makes the 49ers offense really, really special is that they have players that are um, positionless. Debo Samuel being utilized in a running back. Just think about this. Debo Samuel comes from the outside, comes into the running back, and instead of having two running backs here, Christian McCaffrey goes out and he can play wide receiver, and it's like nothing
Yeah.
changed. Do
Mm-hmm.
you know how much of a impact that has on a defense? Knowing like, holy crap, like this guy is just as good as any wide receiver I'm going to face, and he's a running back. Oh, this guy's
Absolutely.
just as good as a running back as he is as a wide receiver, and he's a wide receiver. Like that stuff is the reason why Shanahan's offense is so special, and that is why you saw the slip from the Niners when they had that 3-game skid, is because you take out Debo Samuel and then you take out Trent Williams, which is they run a lot of their run plays to the left for a reason, is because Trent Williams is over there. You take those two players out of the equation, and it really shows some of the deficiencies on that offense without those
Yeah.
players that can create those mismatches. And so it's not about Brock Purdy not being good. He's good. I think he has really, really good anticipation. I think he moves the pocket and sees the blitz, or doesn't have to necessarily see the blitz coming to see downfield. He's not too concerned with what's up front. And I think Jalen Hurts doesn't have that yet, where he's always concerned with what's up front.
Yeah.
I think that he's just one of those players that is like like if I were to ask you to do a job and I said, "Hey, focus on this one thing," and just you go through your read 1, 2, 3, and you make the right read each time. Versus, hey, what we're gonna ask you to do is, we've paid this guy all of this money. We need you to hit him more often than not because we got to make that return on the investment. Oh, also, not only that, but you got to check in and out of all of these all of the scheme, and you got to read the defense every single time, and you got to do all the. That's not what they asked Brock Purdy to do. They asked him to go
Yeah.
to the line. They see, oh, let's pull around this motion. Oh, okay, it's man coverage. Okay, now, hey, come back over here, Debo. Let's put you in the backfield. Send CMC outside. Oh, a linebacker's on CMC. Ha, I got that. Let's go ball. Boom, hit him. Like that's so much more easy than going up to the line, reading the defense, seeing what's up, maybe sending your guy in motion, maybe getting the play in your headset before it cuts off, and getting in the right instance. Like I'm not trying to diminish what Brock Purdy is doing. I'm just saying that, and it's smart. It's the same argument with CeeDee Lamb being utilized in the slot, and everybody wants to clown on CeeDee Lamb. Why is anybody
Yeah.
clowning on that? You are putting your position or your player in the best position to succeed. They're doing that for Brock Purdy. That's not a downfall. If you win a Super Bowl off that, nobody is going to be mad. Nobody's going to say you did it the wrong way. No, you still get to host a Lombardi. Like I don't understand like
Yeah.
why it's such a big deal. Now, with that being said, I still think that Dak is doing more for his team. He's more valuable for his team. And that's what the award is. So I'm personally putting Dak over Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy's my number 2 right now because
Yeah.
we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo in that system. We've seen Nick Mullins, excuse me, and other quarterbacks in that system before, and they haven't executed it to this level. So Brock Purdy does deserve some credit.
Yeah, no, I agree. And me and Mike actually touched on the whole CD Lamb thing, and the whole, slot and playing inside outside. Touched on that a little bit with George Teague last night. And he said that anybody trying to discredit CD Lamb for playing inside outside is a moron and doesn't understand football. He said, when you have a wide receiver that has the versatility that CD Lamb has, you're going to use that versatility. Why would you just keep him matched up on the number one corner if you can have the capability to move him around and create a mismatch? That's what football is about, creating mismatches. So if you have a wide receiver that can do that, and I made the point, I said, well, if you have a wide receiver that can do that, I think that's more valuable than having a guy that can't do that. That
Yeah,
an AJ Brown is only going to play outside. Like, why do you want a guy who's only going to play on the outside? If you can move him inside the formation, or if you can move him around and you can create those mismatches, what coach wouldn't want to do that? I mean,
yeah,
football is all about creating mismatches. That's what you're supposed to do. So yeah, no, anybody that tries to discredit CeeDee Lamb for that that's just ridiculous. He's one of the he's a top 5 receiver in the NFL right now, in my opinion, and will continue to be so. And he just, so yeah, I'm happy we got a guy like that. So him getting mismatches, that's a good thing. Continue to do
absolutely,
that,
absolutely.
Mike.
That's all I had. But before we go, we did get a request for you to do your Jerry impression. Now, I want you to do a bold prediction for this Buffalo game, and I want you to do a score prediction for this Buffalo game, but it has to be in the Jerry impression.
All right,
The
yeah,
floor is
I got that.
yours, good
All
sir.
right, all right. Well, now we're going up there to Buffalo, and Cowboys back in the day were known to take down Buffalo, and they'd skin them alive, and well, maybe not skin them alive. I don't know how they skinned the buffalo. Maybe there's more than one way, but they'd make pelts out of them, and they'd wear them to keep them warm because it's nice and cold, and a buffalo pelt's warm, or so I've heard. The thing about Buffalo is you got a guy in Josh Allen, uh, and he likes to throw picks. He throws interceptions. He throws a lot of them. And when you got a guy who leads the league in pick sixes in all time NFL history in Deron Bland, who is anything but bland, well, then that's a dangerous combination. So my bold prediction is Deron Bland continues his tear on the NFL and gets himself another pick six up in Buffalo. And the Dallas Cowboys are going to walk out of Buffalo, New York, not only with a win, but they will move to 11-3. And to add a cherry on top, I think Philadelphia is going to lose to the Seattle Seahawks. And so, how about them apples? Dallas Cowboys winning this game. I've got to score 33-24.
Hey, you heard it here from Jerry himself. I like everything you said right there, man. I need for my soul another Deron Bland pick six because that almost puts it into the category of, man, that's gonna be hard to beat for another 50 years. So yeah, I need to
Absolutely.
see that. And talking about like Cowboys, they might have Dak Prescott is an All Pro, C.D. Lamb is an All Pro, Deron Bland is an All Pro, Micah Parsons is an All Pro, Zach Martin, uh, um, Tyler Smith, possibly.
Yeah.
You could see a very, very good showing in the All Pro team for the Cowboys this year. And if he gets another one, man, it almost just write his name in right now.
So at the beginning of the season, we had bold predictions that we made at the beginning of the season on our podcast, and my bold prediction was Dak Prescott for MVP and Michael Parsons defensive MVP. So, and I think that
There you go. Did
we're
you
on
put
the
any money
track.
on it?
We're I should have.
You
I did
should
put money
have.
on Dallas to win the NFC and the
If
NFC
you would have, I
East,
think
the
if you would
NFC
have put it on Dak from the beginning of the season, man, you would be making some serious cash.
I would have cleaned up. I would have cleaned up, and I should have, because I did make some prop bets. I did win. Like I said, I bet Dallas to win the NFC. I bet them to win the Super Bowl. It was like plus 1,400 odds. So be raking in some cash if they win that. If they can do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I did think that there was a legit possibility for that to happen. MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, and right now, I mean, it's sitting at some pretty good odds if they continue to play at the pace that they have. Parsons continues to get sacks, and Dak Prescott continues to rack up wins and put up stellar numbers. Then that he's in the firm driver's seat of that the MVP race, especially with this little stretch of games we got going on with the Bills and Miami and Detroit.
Yes, sir.
Those three of the top teams out there. So if he can get, well, at least with Miami and Detroit, Buffalo is still in the playoff team. So yeah, it'll be good to watch this stretch of games and see where we come out at the end of it.
Absolutely, man. Kelly, I can't thank you enough for jumping on the show with me, man. It's an honor to just talk to you, and hopefully I can get back on your show soon, and hopefully I can get you and
Yeah.
Mike on my show as well here in the future. Just once again, shout out your socials and your podcast as well, man.
Yeah, well, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I'll come back anytime, man. I always have fun talking football, and you got definitely got some great insight and a great show. So, anybody in that chat, if y'all hadn't subscribed, make sure y'all get y'all's asses and hit that
Yes,
subscribe
sir.
button. You guys can find me on YouTube. It's www.cowboyscave.com. It's Cowboys Cave on YouTube. And then it's at Kelly K-9. You can find me on I'm on TikTok, and then mainly I'm doing all my stuff on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And it's just at Kelly_K_9.
Sir. Hey, I appreciate it. And chat, thank you for rocking with me. We'll be back next Tuesday with a new guest and just chatting up, hopefully, on the victory Tuesday against the Buffalo Bills. And we're going to be moving to 11-3. Leave a like if you have not already. And be on the lookout for, I'm going to start doing some draft analysis and scouting some players here soon and dropping some videos on that. So we'll catch you next time, and peace.
Yeah. Forget what you got, none of it matters until you don't work from the top. I'm talking non-stop, squad. They've been down with me for years, and none of them asking for squad. Five, out of the gutter, don't stutter, I'm taking my shots. Pop, block, out the noise, some others, my brothers and me, we going off. Bippity pop, talking that ish, I'ma empty my clip, my Ruger go pop. There goes another, I'm jumping for cover, then I'm taking off, we not getting caught. Tired of violence, but you pushing buttons, it's something that's ticking me off. Stop, say it again, gonna regret it, I'm talking behead of your body's gon' rot. If you do not know me, don't comment on my life. Don't comment on my daughter. Don't comment on my wife. Me, I'm just a father. Gotta hustle in the night. Ski mask with a 45 like MJ, take a flight. Me, I gotta move it. I got the drive and I gotta use it. You gonna lose it. Talking that trash in the back of a Buick. Clueless, you know my life and you know my music. Psych, stupid, yeah. Forget what you got, none of it matters until you don't work from the top. I'm talking non-stop, squad. They've been down with me for years, and none of them asking for squad. Five, out of the gutter, don't stutter, I'm taking my shots. Pop, block, out the noise, some others, my brothers and me, we going off. Bippity pop, talking that ish, I'ma empty my clip, my Ruger go pop. There goes another, I'm jumping for cover, then I'm taking off, we not getting caught. Tired of violence, but you pushing buttons, it's something that's ticking me off. Stop, say it again, gonna regret it, I'm talking behead of your body's gon' rot. If you do not know me, don't comment on my life. Don't comment on my daughter. Don't comment on my wife. Me, I'm just a father. Gotta hustle in the night. Ski mask with a 45 like MJ, take a flight. Me, I gotta move it. I got the drive and I gotta use it. You gonna lose it. Talking that trash in the back of a Buick. Clueless, you know my life and you know my music. Psych, stupid, yeah.